There is a very specific sensation, a discomfort we have all felt at some point in front of a screen. It is that moment when you can't distinguish where the machine ends and where the flesh begins. Where technology doesn't seem to have been built, but seems to have grown. It is a cold industrial horror and at the same time strangely organic and sexual. That fear has a name. That style has a father. Usually, when we talk about Hans-Rudi Giger, the conversation begins and ends in Hollywood with the creature that made him immortal, the xenomorph. But to limit Giger to cinema is to ignore where his biomechanical seed germinated with the most force. Today, we're not going to analyze canvases hanging in a museum. Today, we're going to explore how the monochromatic nightmares of a Swiss artist became the architectural blueprints for the most oppressive video games in history. From the limitations of 8-bit to current photorealism, let's discover how H.R. Giger's art infected our consoles. To understand his influence, we must first understand his obsession. Giger didn't paint monsters. He painted a symbiosis between the mechanical and the flesh. His style, known as biomechanical, eliminates the border between biology and architecture. In classical art, the human body is sacred. In Giger's art, the body is merely construction material. Pipes that look like tracheas, pistons acting as phalluses, and walls made of ribs. There is a latent, cold, and dangerous sexual charge. And it is precisely this mixture of eroticism and death that is so disturbing and, at the same time, very alluring. Thus was born the era of unofficial inspiration. The most blatant example is Contra. The final boss isn't subtle. It is literally a xenomorph redesigned just enough to avoid a lawsuit. But beyond the plagiarism, there was genius. Take the example of Metroid or R-Type. Pixel artists face a titanic challenge of translating complex airbrush textures into simple colored dots. They created sprites that pulsated, settings that looked like space entrails. They had to simplify the form, but they kept the concept. You are alone in an alien environment that overwhelms you. But there was a moment in 1992 when the imitation ceased and gave way to real collaboration. The studio Cyberdreams achieved the unthinkable, hiring H.R. Giger to design the art for a graphic adventure, Dark Seed. Giger insisted that the game use high resolution. He hated having his work pixelated. The visual result was stunning for the time. It was like walking inside his paintings. However, Dark Seed taught us a valuable lesson about game design. The game didn't stand out for its gameplay. It was obtuse, unfair, and frustrating for players. Having the most beautiful art in the world doesn't save a game from broken mechanics. Giger provided the atmosphere, but the interactive medium requires something more than a pretty face. It was a visual masterpiece trapped in a playable nightmare. With the arrival of 3D, his influence stopped being about monsters that look like alien and became about the architecture of fear. Doom and Quake use textures of stretched skin over metal. But the true evolution arrived with modern survival horror. Look at Dead Space. Although the necromorphs have their own style, the philosophy is purely Giger-esque. The repurposing or reuse of flesh. The USG Ishimura ship is a labyrinth of metallic ribs. The sound design, the narrow corridors, everything screams biomechanical claustrophobia. Here, Giger's influence is no longer visual, it is psychological. It is the idea that the invasion doesn't come from the outside, but is in the structures that surround us. Technology turns against us. And so, we arrive at the present, to the game that, ironically, Biga never saw, but which is his definitive digital testament, Scorn. Developed by App Software, Scorn isn't just inspired by Giger. Scorn inhabits Giger. What is fascinating here isn't just the graphics, it's the interface. There are no floating health bars, no shiny maps. To open a door, you have to stick your hand into a moist, painful orifice. To reload your weapon, you rip off a chunk of organic matter. The game makes you feel dirty. It makes you feel like an intruder in an ecosystem that doesn't want you there. Scorn achieves what Darkseid could not, integrating the biomechanical aesthetic into the gameplay itself. The entire world is an organism, and you are, probably, just a virus passing through. H.R. Giger passed away in 2014, but his visual DNA is immortal. While cinema relegated him to a single franchise, video games have allowed his art to evolve, breathe, and interact with us. Video games are the only medium where we don't just observe the nightmare, but have to survive it.